Hello world, welcome back to my channel. My name's Paul. We're all packed ready to go. Heading to Norseman today, Kalgoorlie tomorrow. We'll get you a bit of footage along the way. I've got a bit of a question I want to ask you, but for now, let's roll the intro. So what do this hotel, this motel and this fence have in common? And the answer is, in March 21st, 2023, I had my last beer ever in a bar at the Pier Hotel. I got drunk on March 22nd, I got drunk for the last time at the Jetty Resort Motel. And if you look behind us here, that sign, it's Norseman straight ahead and Perth to the right. My friend was hitchhiking to Norseman, I was hitchhiking to Perth, so we sat on the fence, which is just behind us here, and drank our last beers ever. So the last beer I ever had was sitting on that fence. Oh well, we're on the road to Norseman. While we're driving, I thought I'd tell you why I gave up drinking. Now it was March 21st, 2003, they started bombing Iraq that day, and they were showing it 24 hours a day on the TV. So my friend and I were staying at a backpackers in Esperance, and I was up with the other backpackers watching the TV, but my friend was asleep, and he was on the top bunk, and there was this young European girl on the bottom bunk, and I heard her screaming, and I thought he'd just got up to go to the toilet, then tried to get into the wrong bed. So I went to tell her he's not a rapist, he's just a drunken idiot. But when I got into the room, he was still asleep, and he'd wet the bed, and it was such a quality mattress that it hadn't just come down in a stream. The whole mattress had filled up with piss, whatever you want to call it, and it had gently rained on her. So by the time she woke up, she was soaking wet with pee, and he had no shame whatsoever, and I felt such shame that they say you've got to hit rock bottom, but seeing him hit rock bottom was the start for me. And over the next few years after that, I gave up tobacco, all drugs, avoidable sugar. So it really changed my life, that bedwetting. So we just pulled over at Skadden. This they call Pioneer Park. It's just a few murals. I thought I'd show you around. You've got to think, guys, there was people. It's easy for us driving through this at 110 kilometres an hour, but these guys came through here in horses. It was all bush. They wouldn't have known where their next bit of water was coming from, so they really were pioneers all over Australia. I'm in awe of those people. Hey guys, we're in Salmon Gums, just stopped for a late breakfast. It is, well, very late, it's 1:45, so really let's call it lunch. I'll put the drone up, and we're about an hour from Norseman. That's our goal today. We'll try and get you a bit more footage along the way, but for now, I'm going to go and eat. Hey, so today we're staying at the Great Western Motel in Norseman. It's a surprisingly nice spot, but in Norseman everything's pretty expensive, but it's alright. I'll give you a bit of a room tour. Morning. I say this a lot, but Janet's still in bed. I'm a morning person, she's not. I thought I'd get up and do a bit of filming while there's no breeze. The sign right here, 1986 kilometres to Adelaide. I've sat in this exact spot, and the people that know me that are watching this will vouch that this isn't an exaggeration, but I've sat here 40 or 50 times in my life. And I watch other YouTubers hitchhiking saying, oh, I've been here for an hour, it usually only takes half an hour to an hour. Well mate, when you come here you're expecting to be here at least one day. I've spent 2 or 3 days here many times. Same as Kalgoorlie, which will be in the next video. And the longest I've spent anywhere was in Charters Towers in Queensland, maybe a couple hundred k's out of Townsville. I sat there for 10 days once trying to get a lift and ended up jumping a goods train, and that took me to Mount Isa. So this was a big part of my life, this very spot. Guys, these days I work underground, but for most of my working life I was in mineral exploration, geologist assistant, and these days there's very little green fields left. Green fields is a place that's never been explored, brown fields is a place that's been explored but needs to be done again, and most of the area now is brown fields. But in my back 35 years ago, I'm getting old, 35 years ago, it was a lot of green fields, and we explored all through this area. And back before, there's a water pipeline that goes from Perth to Kalgoorlie now, supplying the drinking water. But before that, all the water was distilled. So the guys had come out here and they'd chop trees for the distillery, and there was these little train lines, and the guys would live in these camps. The trains would come along and pick up the firewood, and when the water arrived in Kalgoorlie from Perth, that's another story I'll tell you on the way back to Perth, but when they just sent these trains out, picked up the guys. So we were coming across these camps, and there was old beer bottles sitting next to a log where they'd been sitting having a beer when the train turned up, and their axes had been left on the ground. There was still the axe head there, and you could see where the wood had just rotted away. So that was, like I said, 35 years ago. So now we're at the Widgiemooltha Roadhouse. This is where they found the golden eagle nugget, which is one of the biggest nuggets ever found. It was 66 centimetres long by 29 centimetres high by 6.5 centimetres thick, and it weighed 1,135 ounces. Imagine just struggling through this bush with your wheelbarrow and finding that. And back in those days, it was worth $11,000. But at today's gold price, it's worth $2 million US. Hey, so we made it to Kalgoorlie. This is the room. I won't bother doing a room tour because it's pretty small, but this is a really nice room. We've got the bathroom there, obviously. I'm sitting on the bed, TV up there, so we got everything we need. Okay guys, this is where we're staying, Tower Hotel. Really comfortable room, great food, and there's a bar out the front, but it's further away from the rooms, you can't hear anything. Great place to stay if you're in Kalgoorlie. Now we're at the Museum of the Goldfields. Back in about 87 or 88, maybe 89, I worked for Millwood Surveys in Kalgoorlie here, and his wife was a big part of setting this museum up, and as you're about to see, it's a very informative couple of hours. lot of this is the actual buildings that were the original buildings of Kalgoorlie. A lot of it's been recreated, but like this building here is the original, this one's created, but they've done a really, really good job here. Hey guys, in Australia we're lucky. We've got very good workers' rights. It's not often someone has to work 2 jobs to survive, and that's because of these guys, the unions. And if it all started in Ballarat with the Eureka Stockade, and that's when the miners stood up against the government, protesting the mining taxes, etc. And our unions aren't corrupt like they seem to be in other parts of the world. They're really by the people, for the people. And that's what it's all about. That's why I make such a good living. That's why so many people in Western Australia are making such a good living. And it's why Australia is doing so well compared with the rest of the world during the coronavirus, because we've got all this money from mining just for that little yellow metal. And behind me here's the memorial wall for all the miners that lost their lives in mining over the years. There's a name on there, a guy who I knew, worked with. Well, we went to work one day and got told the mine shut down for 2 days during an investigation. Yes, he'd lost his life that night. Yeah, I don't know what to say, guys. This statue right behind me here, that's Pattie Hannon. In 1893, him and his mates discovered this patch of gold, the Golden Mile, the richest square mile in the world, and it's said that his mates had more to do with it than he did, but he was a very good self-promoter. So Pattie gets the credit for starting Kalgoorlie, starting Western Australia really, because it was the goldfields that made us what we are. So Pattie, thank you for all the work, mate. Well, that was a fun couple of days. It's always fun to come back to my roots, and Norseman and Kalgoorlie are where my career began. My father's dream for my life was he'd organised for me to go into the rig tenders when I was 16, and they're the boats that take all the supplies out to the oil rigs off the West Australian coast. And then when I turned 18, I would have gone straight onto the drill floor, but I would have bypassed roustabout because I'd already had the 2 years experience on the tenders. But being a young bloke, I rebelled against my father and I went bush instead. But guys, it's exactly the same thing. We're just out here on dirt instead of water. As usual, I'll leave links to everywhere in the description. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe down below. Give me a big thumbs up. Maybe say hello in the comments, and we'll see you next time.